Have you ever taken a look at your bank account after a completely ordinary month and found yourself scratching your head over where all your money vanished to? You didn't go on any spending sprees, no major splurges, just the usual stuff: groceries, a few meals out, maybe a new phone because your old one was starting to drag, just routine expenses. And yet somehow you're sitting there with that nagging feeling that you should have way more left over than you actually do. Here's the thing, and it's something most people don't catch on to until it's already too late. A lot of the things we buy these days just aren't worth the price tag anymore, not even close. Prices have shot through the roof on stuff that used to be perfectly reasonable. And we're all just kind of going along with it because that's what everybody else does. My name is Gen Z Invest, and I help people wrap their heads around money, specifically how to hold onto more of it instead of watching it evaporate on overpriced nonsense. If you're ready to stop feeling like you're constantly scraping by and actually figure out where your hard-earned cash ought to be going, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and drop a like if this video helps you out. Let's kick things off with something that might ruffle some feathers, but it needs to be said out loud. Fast food isn't cheap anymore. It just isn't. Remember back when fast food was what you grabbed because it was quick and easy on the wallet? That was the whole appeal. You could snag a burger and fries for a couple bucks and be on your merry way. Those days are ancient history, completely gone. Now you're looking at $12, $15, sometimes $20 for a single meal at McDonald's or Burger King, $20 for fast food. That's not even sitting down at an actual restaurant with real plates and a server bringing you water. You're standing at a counter or eating out of a paper bag in your car. And it's costing you what a decent meal at a casual sit-down place would have set you back just a few years ago. The value proposition has completely evaporated. You're shelling out premium prices for food that's still the same mediocre quality it's always been. And people are still doing it anyway because it's convenient, and we've all just accepted that this is the new normal. But it gets even worse when you think about eating out at actual restaurants, not fast food. I'm talking about sit-down places. This used to be something you could do pretty regularly without blowing your budget. Maybe once or twice a week you'd go out for dinner, no big deal. Now, dining out has turned into this luxury expense that racks up so fast. It's genuinely jarring. You sit down, order a couple of entrees, maybe an appetizer, definitely drinks because why not? And before you know it, you're staring at a bill that's $60, $70, $80 for two people for one meal, and that's at a place that's not even fancy, just a regular restaurant. Nothing special. Then you add the tip, because of course you're tipping, and suddenly you've dropped $100 on dinner, $100 that's gone forever. You can't get it back. It's not like you bought something that holds any value. You ate some food, and now it's over. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with enjoying a meal out here and there, but when you're doing this multiple times a week, which plenty of people are, you're talking about thousands of dollars every single month just disappearing into restaurant tabs. And for what? Food that honestly you could have whipped up at home for a fraction of the cost. Maybe it wouldn't be quite as good, sure, but would it be good enough to justify spending 5 or 6 times more? Probably not. Most people who are struggling financially, and I mean really struggling to save, to invest, to build any kind of wealth, they're eating out way too often. That's usually where a huge chunk of their income is leaking out. They don't even notice it because it's $20 here, $30 there. But it piles up into this massive expense category that's completely optional. Then there's cars, brand new cars specifically. This one drives me up the wall because the math is so painfully obvious, and yet people keep falling for it. Buying a new car is one of the worst financial moves you can make. I'm not exaggerating. The moment you drive a new car off the dealer's lot, it loses something like 20% of its value instantly. You haven't even made it home yet, and you're already down thousands of dollars. Then it just keeps depreciating, shedding more value every single year. Meanwhile, you're probably making payments on it because most people finance cars these days, so you're paying interest on top of the purchase price. And the thing you're making payments on is actively becoming worth less and less. It's the opposite of an investment. It's just setting money on fire. And people do it because they want that new car smell and the feeling of having the latest model. They want people to see them driving something current status stuff, basically. Which is fine if you're wealthy and money doesn't matter to you. But if you're a regular person trying to build financial security, buying new cars is going to keep you stuck, straight up. A 3 or 4-year-old used car is going to be just as reliable, get you to the same places, and cost half as much, maybe even less than half. The depreciation has already hit. Someone else took the financial hit while you get all the utility. But people don't want to hear this because they've convinced themselves they deserve a new car. They work hard, so they should treat themselves, except treating yourself to a new car means you're treating yourself to being strapped for cash for the next 5 years while you make those payments. Let's talk about clothing, specifically branded luxury clothing, designer stuff. Now look, I'm not saying all expensive clothing is a waste. Sometimes you need quality pieces that hold up. A good pair of boots, a well-made coat, things like that can be worth spending more on because they'll last for years and actually save you money in the long run. But that's not what most people are buying when they drop cash on expensive clothing. They're buying logos, they're buying brand names, they're buying the ability to signal to people that they own something from a luxury label, and they're paying absolutely ridiculous markups for it. You can buy a plain white t-shirt for $10, or you can buy essentially the same t-shirt with a designer logo plastered on it for $200. Same cotton, same factory. Probably, the only difference is the logo. And people will fork over that $200 because they think it makes them look successful or fashionable or whatever. Meanwhile, nobody actually cares what brand your t-shirt is except you. Nobody's impressed. They might notice the logo, sure, but it's not changing their opinion of you. You're just out an extra $190 for no real reason. This applies to so much clothing: designer jeans, luxury handbags, expensive sneakers. The quality gap between the luxury version and a normal version is usually pretty minimal. What you're paying for is brand recognition, and that's fine if you've got money to burn, but most people doing this don't. They're going into credit card debt to buy designer clothes because they think it matters. It doesn't. It's marketing convincing you that you need these things to feel like you're worth something. You don't. Vacations are another one that's gotten completely out of hand price-wise. Taking a vacation used to be pretty affordable if you were smart about it. You could find decent flights, book a budget hotel, eat at inexpensive local spots, and have a great time without spending a fortune. That's gotten way harder. Flight prices are outrageous now, hotels are outrageous, even the budget options are expensive compared to what they used to be. And people are still taking these elaborate trips they can't afford because they feel like they have to. They see everyone else posting vacation photos on social media, and they think they need to do the same thing, so they book a getaway they can't really afford, put a bunch of it on credit cards, and then spend the next year paying it off with interest. Don't get me wrong, travel can be great, seeing new places, experiencing different cultures. All of that has real value, but not if it's putting you in debt. Not if it's keeping you from saving money or investing for your future. There's this attitude that you have to travel while you're young, you have to see the world, you have to collect experiences, and sure, experiences are valuable, but you know what else is valuable? Not being broke, not being stressed about money all the time. Not having to work until you're 70 because you blew all your cash on vacations in your 20s and 30s. Maybe the better approach is to take smaller trips closer to home, explore your own region, find free or cheap things to do. Save the expense of international travel for when you can actually afford it without going into debt. But that's not what people want to hear. They want permission to spend money they don't have on experiences they think they need. And while we're talking about subscriptions, let's address streaming services. Everyone has like 5 or 6 of them now: Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Paramount Plus, whatever else is out there. Each one is only $10 or $15 a month. Which doesn't sound like much, but when you add them all up, you're paying $60, $70, $80 a month just for streaming. That's close to $1,000 a year for television. Now think about how much of that content you're actually watching. You're probably using one or two services regularly and barely touching the others. But you keep paying for all of them because you might want to watch something on them eventually. Meanwhile, that's money that could be going toward literally anything else: investments, savings, paying down debt, whatever. Instead, it's leaking out to streaming services you barely use. And cable is even worse. People are still paying for cable somehow, even though everything is available through streaming now. They're paying $150 a month for cable packages with hundreds of channels they never watch. It's completely unnecessary at this point. But people keep doing it because that's what they've always done. They haven't bothered to cancel and find a cheaper alternative, so they just keep shelling out. And it's not just cable. People are doing this with gym memberships too. They sign up for a gym, pay $50 or $60 a month, go for the first 2 weeks, then never step foot in there again. But they keep paying because canceling feels like admitting defeat. So that's another $500 or $600 a year just gone, money that could have been invested or saved or used for something that actually matters. But instead it's going to a gym membership you're not using because you don't want to admit you're not going. Then there's the whole thing with buying new electronics. Every single year, a new phone comes out, people line up to buy it, even though their current phone works perfectly fine. New laptop, new tablet, new smartwatch, whatever, the old one still does the job. But the new one has slightly better features, so obviously they need it. This is probably one of the dumbest ways people fritter away their money, and almost everyone does it to some degree. A new iPhone costs $1,000 now, maybe more depending on the model, and people are buying them every year or every 2 years when their old phone is completely functional. Sure, the new one has a better camera or a faster processor or whatever, but does that actually improve your life in any meaningful way? Probably not. You're still using it to scroll social media, send texts, and take pictures of your food. The old phone did all that just fine. And it's not just phones, laptops, tablets, gaming consoles, all of it. People are constantly upgrading to the latest version when the thing they already own works perfectly well. Tech companies have figured out how to make people feel like they need the newest model, even when they absolutely don't. They release a new version every year with minor tweaks and people fall for it every time. Meanwhile, if you just held onto your phone or laptop for 4 or 5 years instead of upgrading constantly, you'd save thousands of dollars, thousands, that could be invested. That could be earning returns. But instead it's going to Apple or Samsung or whoever because people think they need the latest gadget. The worst part is that these devices don't even last as long as they used to. They're engineered to break or become obsolete faster, so you have to keep buying new ones. Planned obsolescence is real and it's screwing everyone over. But people keep playing along because they want the shiny new thing. They want to feel like they're keeping up with technology even though technology has advanced way beyond what most people actually need for their daily lives. Here's another category that's gotten completely out of control: branded cleaning products, expensive premium household kitchen gadgets, designer furniture, all that stuff. People are spending way more than they need to on basic household items because they think the expensive version is somehow better. Sometimes it is, sure. But most of the time you're just paying for a brand name. Generic cleaning products work just as well as the name brand stuff but cost half as much. That cheap spatula from the dollar store does the same job as the fancy one from Williams-Sonoma. Nobody needs a $400 blender unless they're running a smoothie shop. But people buy this stuff anyway because they've been convinced that expensive means better quality, and sometimes that's true, but often it's not. There's this whole culture now around having the perfect kitchen with all the right tools and gadgets. People are buying specialized equipment for things they make once a year. Bread makers they never use, pasta machines collecting dust, expensive knife sets when they only ever use 2 of the knives. It's all just stuff taking up space and draining bank accounts. And furniture, don't even get me started on furniture. People are financing furniture now, financing it like it's a car or a house. They're going into debt to buy a couch, A couch that's going to be worn out and stained in 5 years anyway. But they want the nice one from the expensive store, so they put it on a payment plan and pay interest on a couch. That's insane. You can get a perfectly good couch for a few $100 if you're willing to look around a bit. Thrift stores, online marketplaces, clearance sales, whatever. But people don't want to do that because they want everything to look perfect and match and be Instagram worthy, so they spend thousands on furniture they can't afford. Then there's what I call status spending. This is when people buy things not because they need them or even really want them, but because they think it makes them look successful. Expensive watches, designer bags, luxury cars they can barely afford. All of it is just trying to project an image of wealth to other people. And it's completely backwards. Actually, wealthy people usually aren't the ones doing this. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. It's people who want to look wealthy but aren't actually building wealth who fall into this trap. They're spending money on things that lose value just so they can look successful to their friends and neighbors and random strangers who don't care about them at all. Meanwhile, they have no savings, no investments, nothing building for their future, but they've got the nice watch and the designer purse, so everyone thinks they're doing great. It's all fake. All of it. And the really sad part is that this kind of spending is often driven by insecurity. People think if they have the right stuff, they'll feel better about themselves or other people will respect them more. But it doesn't work that way. Respect comes from character and actions, not from the brand of your handbag. And feeling better about yourself definitely doesn't come from going into debt to buy things you don't need. So where does all this leave us? Well, pretty much everything costs more than it used to, and most of it isn't worth the price anymore. Fast food is expensive and terrible. Restaurants are overpriced, new cars are financial suicide, clothes are marked up like crazy, vacations cost more than they should, subscriptions are bleeding everyone dry. Electronics are overpriced and engineered to fail, household stuff is unnecessarily expensive. And status spending is just throwing money away to impress nobody. The solution isn't that complicated really. Stop buying stuff you don't need. Stop trying to keep pace with everyone else. Stop falling for marketing that tells you need the newest version of everything. Just stop. Cook at home more often. Hold onto your car longer. Buy used when you can. Cut the subscriptions you don't actually use. Keep your phone until it genuinely breaks. Go with generic products. Stop trying to look rich and start actually building wealth instead. Because that's what it comes down to. You can either look wealthy or be wealthy, but for most people, you can't do both. Every dollar you spend on impressing other people or buying stuff you don't need is a dollar. That's not working for your future. And yeah, maybe that means your life looks a little less impressive on social media. Maybe you don't have the newest phone or the fanciest car or the most exotic vacation photos. But you know what you will have. Savings, investments, money, actual financial security instead of just the appearance of it. That's worth way more than any of this other stuff. But most people won't figure that out until it's too late. Look, I'm not saying you have to live like a monk and never enjoy anything. That's not the point. Buy things that actually matter to you. Things that genuinely improve your life or bring you real happiness. But be honest about what those things are. Most of the stuff people spend money on doesn't actually make them happier. It just makes them broke. And being broke definitely doesn't make you happier. The reality is prices have gone up on everything, and they're probably not coming back down. Companies have figured out they can charge more and people will still pay. So they keep hiking prices, and we keep paying because we think we don't have a choice. But we do. We can just stop buying overpriced stuff. We can say no. We can keep our old phone another year. We can cook dinner instead of going out. We can skip the designer whatever and buy the normal version. It's not that hard once you actually think about it instead of just doing what everyone else is doing. The people who figure this out early are the ones who end up financially comfortable down the road. The ones who keep spending money they don't have on things they don't need are the ones who end up saying rest about money for their entire lives. Wondering why they can't get ahead even though they make decent money. Well, this is why. All these little expenses That seem reasonable in the moment but add up to thousands and thousands of dollars every year that just disappear. So maybe think about where your money is actually going, track it for a month if you need to. You'll probably be surprised how much you're spending on stuff that doesn't matter. Then figure out what you can cut, because I guarantee there's something. Usually there's a lot of some things. And that money could be doing something way more useful than paying for your 7th streaming service or your 3rd meal out this week.